Mm.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, that voice. Hey, Annette. Meow.
Hello.
So I proposed this call a couple of days ago, or was it yesterday, when there was a feeling of exhaustion in my body, having a little micro burnout. And through sharing that process with you, I felt like you were able to help me to understand that it's collective. And then we decided that we would do what we love to do, which is to go into dialogue and share. My intention is to really just open this container with you from that place of, okay, what does it look like as leaders, as women, as social artists in this moment? Creating a new future, creating a whole new story.
Yeah, thank you for also hearing my call, I feel, across the ethers and many women, and being honest enough to say, like, as incredible as the call in the container and the energy was, like, afterwards, I'm actually exhausted. I don't feel that this is the way, and I need my bitches and witches and support network to come up and for us to navigate, okay, how do we actually co-weave?
Yeah, and it's a topic that's been coming up a lot, I feel, in the collective, because since our guest teacher Corona entered our workshop program of life non-consensually 2 years ago, or 2 million years ago, whenever it was that happened, doesn't even feel clear anymore. There's been this collective urgent need to create community now. And I hear a lot these very beautiful romantic desires of, like, oh, I'm gonna go and live in a permaculture project now. Oh, I'm gonna go and pursue my dreams of creating community now. Oh, I'm gonna begin going into leadership and really doing what I'm here to do, and gathering energy and being a steward for the new way. And I include myself in that. And there's this desire to really share that it's not easy to lead. And we've only had examples out there that are not emergent. They're not emergent because emergent by definition is something that doesn't exist yet. It's like to emerge into something means to activate the imagination, so you get to actually create a new reality. So yeah, I'm also turned on to perhaps dream a new way of being in leadership together, as leaders coming together and saying, hey, like, what is it that has worked for us? What is it that hasn't really worked but has been important as an experience?
I'm thinking about this, I mean, in a beautiful matriarchal course at the moment. It's actually a university in Germany, and they speak a lot about the old, like, pre-patriarchy systems and what made it work, like what was the difference from this triangle leadership power over, and the mother was the center. It was never woman over. So I think, just as a definition and like a point of change, I think we're replicating in our women stuff, like a lot of what is happening outside in the men's space without meaning to, where we're just like adopting an old way because we don't really know what the new way was or what the old way was. And so I just keep thinking, like, mother in the center, okay, what does that mean? Like, what does the center look like? And yeah, I know for myself, I had to, like, as you say, go through the opposite. So on that point of what didn't work and why did I go there, I like to speak to that young woman who felt disempowered her whole life, who then wanted power. Like, I worked on the door of nightclubs. I was the door bitch, like literally going like, yes, no, yes, no. And it felt so good to be that leader that was just like the power is addictive and super enticing. So I have so much empathy and like compassion for us as facilitators and just women in general who find themselves like suddenly in the queen's throne, like, you know, enjoying this play, but then realizing like after a while, like, this is really fucking lonely and super like such a big responsibility, and receiving a lot of judgment and like aggression and pushback. So yeah, I've really like I've felt the waves of those different power plays, and like the little ego where it comes from, of like, I've been feeling really left out and hurt actually.
Beautiful that you share this, the mother in the center, because I also feel like I've had my own experience of, I was also a door bitch. Oh my God, the parallels are beautiful. Yeah, and then was also, yeah, I was also a dominatrix. And so really, you know, if you want to have a taste of that power over medicine, if you really want to go into the archetypal role play of understanding how it can be both a beautiful and potentially toxic and damaging thing to have power over another person's body, over another person's physical autonomy, you just go and be a dominatrix for a day. Yeah. And I really feel that I personally needed to have this intense experience of power over, so that I could understand what it might look like to create a life where I'm not in this constant nervous system state of trying to control other people and trying to manipulate them in order to get the money, in order to get the love, in order to get the friends, in order to get the community. And I really want to out myself here and say, I still don't know. Like, that's the point. This is where I'm personally at, is that I don't know what it truly looks like to be in a position of power and to not be the shepherd at the front. When you say the mother in the center, I have a photo of a wolf on my altar, and whenever I feel this sense of loneliness, there's like a wolf sanctuary Facebook group that I follow that just has videos of wolves howling. And it really soothes my system somehow, because the way that they lead is from the back, you know, like they let the youngest ones walk at the front, and that I keep reminding myself that is the best way to lead. You know, it's like, how does the mature masculine lead? He supports from the bottom. It's like the roots of the earth. And I'm not there yet, which is why I can get burnt out sometimes, because it's really hard work on a physical level to really stay in the parasympathetic nervous system if your whole reality is being in the sympathetic, in the forcing and changing and controlling. And yeah, forcing is like the predominant word. That's like the sympathetic nervous system, forcing and reacting. And this, I feel, is the masculine part of the nervous system, which is necessary for survival. And it's really hard work to stay in the receptive mode of listening, especially if you haven't had positive experience of what you've received in your life. You won't feel safe receiving.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. When you spoke about the wolves, I was actually feeling, I was telling you about these retreats I ran and the empowerment that the young women were feeling, and then the desire to replicate. And the genuine like fear that came inside of me of letting this move away from you and beyond you. And I think that's also a very real thing. It's like we enjoy that like responsibility and the need to have us there. And I think I'm just like realizing, as you say, it's because I'm afraid that I'm not going to get it back. Like if I let it go, like will I receive? Do I trust enough to know that there's enough, that it's abundant? Yeah, it's kind of like still feeding on a little bit of that scarcity wounding.
And it's tricky as well, because it's tricky because the challenge that I see is, even as a facilitator or as a leader of groups. I was also talking to a friend of mine who runs a really beautiful festival, this Mother Roots gathering, and it's a really beautiful space. It's a festival just for women, and me and her were talking about it, and she was sharing that she's had this, she's feeling that it's like, it's work to really gather energy, it's work to have a team. Sometimes it's easier to be a one-woman show who employs people rather than co-creating a container, because to really to be a co-inspirer is really hard, because it involves every single person getting into that lane of being also in a parasympathetic nervous system state, being able to receive and listen and be resilient enough as well. It's like, oh, can we all be resilient enough? And this, on a more meta level, to really expand it outwards a little bit, this reminds me of why I really feel drawn to right now birthing more leaders into the world. It's because I have this sense that even if you, Aneta, even if you personally find out what your really deep, true meaning is for being here, and even if you receive a message from the Palladians or from God or from whoever about what it is that everybody else's role is here, the tricky thing is that I feel that in order for us to wake up as a collective, as a human race, I feel that it's going to involve every single person waking up. I feel that it's like everyone is coming along, and we'll only move if we all come along together. This is where my heart breaks a little bit, and this is where I notice I can really touch deep grief and despair in a beautiful way, because this despair is a doorway. Despair is a doorway, right, to deeper work and deeper purpose. And sometimes this feeling of grief can transform into rage, this sacred rage where I'm like, come on, I'm doing the work, please.
Yeah, where are you?
Yeah, well, I need to fucking feel you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, completely. And I'm actually like reflecting on my own shame, actually, of in the past, like giving up on my sisters or friends, even, where I'm like, you're not coming along, or you're dragging me into the depths of your repetitive patterns. And I just like, because I'm like this fucking Aries go-getter, and I move quickly, and I got people, and I'm like moving on. And then I feel this deep shame where I'm like, I couldn't actually really stay. And then in the exercise you gave us for sovereign, it's like the judgment is that I don't actually stay with myself, when I really, really meet like a deep need. I'm very quick to like move on, like, or just like make it work. And that's been my life's thing. It's like I can survive, I can keep going. And there's like there's that story of the femur bone, like the first femur bone that needed to be healed, and how the animals, like, true humanity was when nobody's left behind. And I'll send you the story. I think it's like a anthropologist, and we think it's about progress and productivity, but actually it's ensuring that every single person joins. Nobody left behind. Nobody.
And let's say, just hypothetically, if that is the genesis of the human race, like if where we are at right now is the part of the Cinderella story where she loses her shoe, where we begin losing a lot of human lives, where we lose trust in our structure where we lose our way. Let's say, for example, if this is the part of the Cinderella story where she is about to meet her prince and she's about to really be in union with the essential thing. Let's say if Corona was the losing of the shoe, what more beautiful gift than having the message of literally like, recognize that we're all connected, recognize that if you have something in your system, being in close proximity to another being, check it out, it's going to transfer. What more beautiful way, if God is a trickster, which she is, what more beautiful way for every single person, whether you're religious, spiritual, connected or not, to have this fucking necessary transmission of nobody gets left behind in order to really come into contact with our true humanity. And let's say if it is this part of the Cinderella story where she loses a shoe, the deepest tragedy comes right before the most incredible celebration and redemption, you know? Just hypothetically. That's just like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's really irresistible these days.
Yeah. I feel that, like, on a gloomy day, and maybe it's the like naivety, but it's this pure hope, knowing, like I have this knowing there is a lot on the other side. We are in the birth canal. We are in the birth canal, and we don't know, actually. And to be okay also with possibly dying out, because it's not the end. My like partner always teaches me, he's like, that's also part of your control, is like wanting to know that it's going to be good, or wanting to know that there is an afterlife, or wanting to know that, and it's just like, maybe that's the great mystery, that it's just this like void. And yeah, we're all just learning to like live in true surrender, true uncertainty, true feminine chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to take a moment to just feel that. That feels Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that it's important to do this work of really spreading these seeds, like scattering these seeds on the ground, of finding new ways of being in power, and like really giving people tools to create community and to inspire people. I love that you have this Aries energy of I feel like you have the capacity to stay and to keep going, like to keep putting fire in the oven, you know, to keep the vehicle of liberation moving. And so what do you feel, I'm curious what you feel as a facilitator has been useful, your tenacity around liberating yourself out of old patterns of being in power. And I'm curious.
Yeah, I actually just think of like play. Like I think of the silly, playful, like really stupid things. And I always have this image of like these dancing. Dance has been a big thing. Like my partner's a DJ, works in music. I've always been around music. And when I think of the cosmic dance, I think of it's like, it's all just a dance. Like it's so playful actually. And that kind of, that helps me move through the seriousness and the pain and the anger. It's like, okay, like on the other side, like what the fuck does it all mean? You know, when you have those moments where you're like on the dance floor, it's like, what are we even like stressing about? Like, let's just find that bliss. So there's definitely like a play, a big playful spirit that I have. Like I'm very playful. I feel in a weird way, going through stuff quite early on in my childhood and losing innocence and not having the inner child as a young person. As an adult now, it's like my child, I'm like stopped in a way and now she's back as an adult, and I can feel that innocence returning and the necessity of her coming forward a lot.
Yeah. Wow, I can so relate to that. Wow, the parallels. I feel that if we would have met each other when we were 11 years old, I feel that we would have been knocking on each other's doors after school, like every night, you know? I think there's this play piece is so essential. This play piece is so essential, and it inspires me to this gesture of like bowing down to the lineage of the clown, and being able to really go into play, and being so grateful for archetype work as well. That's what I fucking love so much about going into the embodiment and going into role play, and really allowing ourselves to just try on different outfits of different ways of being. This is so important, especially as women, because we love to be given this, we love to be put into boxes. This is one of the most boring social conditionings in Western culture of women, is that the conditioning of woman is you're either Lilith or you're Eve. You're either like wifey or like a slut. And these fucking boxes are tight. And it's even as a facilitator as well, it's so interesting noticing that happening in facilitation land as well, because you're either a spiritual facilitator, or it's like either you're like teacher or your mentor, and it's these words and these boxes, and even just like the culture of social media.
I just want to kick it out the way with my foot.
And nobody is helping usher, and like we're not helping each other either, because it's like I have people come to me being like, what is it that you do? And I'm like, I help you do you. I do me. And by me doing me, by me being focused on being in my authentic expression, it is going to help anybody who gets in that orbit be in their authentic expression. And that is worth charging money for. I want every single person to know that them doing them is a beautiful gift to the world. And we get to sustain our life through just being ourselves and being in service through being ourselves. And it's beautiful when people are devotional to a method. Like, I love that. I have so much admiration for people who devote their life to putting the method before their personality. Like, I love that. And it's just a matter of time until I allow myself to go into that, I feel. But for now, it feels like a beautiful seed right now of like, what does your leadership look like when the intention is always to be devoted to your natural expression and trusting that that is what is so needed right now?
Yeah, authentically. And it attracts, I feel like, when you're authentically you're going to attract who's looking for that. And it's going to change, like, as we then maybe become mothers, or we shift into different stages of life, different expressions are going to show up, and then different people are going to feel connected to you. And that's also a thing I'm learning. It's like, not everyone's going to feel the resonance, and it's not actually about them. It's about me being really real, and in that realness, it just activates their realness. And like
So that inspires me to also share from the aspect of that I feel it's in the Sovereign Manifesto, and it's drinking from the placenta. And this is a coin that Medi channeled, Medi Kahu, who's in Sovereign, who we know. And this concept of drinking from the placenta, and really letting your current disclaimer of who you are be totally destroyed in any moment, almost like life how can leadership look when your whole life is sitting in front of the altar of your experience and going, okay, just like totally annihilate me if it's necessary in order for me to really be who it is that I'm here to be. How can I allow myself to totally be available to be like fucked wide open to deeper layers of truth? And also Bill Plotkin shares a lot about this in the Descent to Soul Union, that in order for your own genesis to really come towards you, or for you to come towards it, it's going to be necessary for total alienation to happen at some point. You're probably going to have to go into a state of being totally disconnected to your partner, your family. Your social identity is going to get fucked and torn wide open, most likely, because most likely your social identity is formed on a structure of ego, because your ego has supported you to survive, but we're not going into surviving, we're going into dying. Like, that's the aim.
Yes.
You know, to come into deep soul union, if you want to know what your deeper purpose is. It's like, you're gonna get really ecstatic about letting every part of your life totally be dissolved. And
biggest magic, death. And what we're all fearing, which is why we're all stuck, is we're avoiding that void. A void.
Oh yeah. And so so this like drinking from the placenta, really having primary experience, I've personally had to really go into the physical embodied experience of like I said about the being a dominatrix, because I was curious. I was like curious about sexuality. I've had hyper arousal a lot of my life, of not being able to really get wet and really enjoy sex because of a lot of as a result of PTSD, having a lot of trauma in my body and having to heal that. And was curious, like, what does it mean to be a really sexy woman who has a lot of power? I don't feel like I have a lot of power, so I'm gonna go and like wear a bunch of latex and be in power and see what that feels like, to see if that transmutes something, like doing the role play in order to create the experience, like going into the embodiment to have the experience. And I also had a similar experience this last year, really just the most recent lesson of going into this, like having a taste of this kind of goddess empowerment culture that's quite turned on by money. And I was really just curious about, what does it mean to go into this way of leading where I get to feel what it's like to be this sexy, powerful woman who allows herself to be turned on by money, like allowing myself to go there. And then through that lived embodied experience of really going there, even if it was for just like a few weeks, essentially. I'm like, okay, like, what is it like to be one of these babes who has like really sexy photo shoots on a beach and is like super polyamorous? What does it mean to be that kind of woman? What does she get to experience? What does she know? What kind of texture of God does she touch? And I needed to have the physical experience to understand, that's not God for me. That's not soul for me. And I confess that I will probably be having the lived embodied placenta drinking until I die. Like, yes. I'm not there, you know?
Yeah, and bless those who are. Like, I think of my mom, I have fought her for so long, and like, why do you just need all these things? And she literally, I like see her as an empress, and she has so much delight in like adornment. And I mean, she is just fabulous and has this light. And those who I realize, like, she comes up with a lot of judgment from women especially, and my whole life it's been like this embarrassment, like, oh, she's the most overdressed woman in every school like meeting, and she's just so over the top. And the more I kind of revere her and see her for who she is, I'm like, that's her expression in this fucking life. And can everyone just leave her alone? And can we all stop pointing fingers at what the goddess or what the queen or what the leader should look like? And as you say, start drinking from the placenta and finding what's true for us. And maybe it's a combination, you know, maybe it's ever evolving.
And so also unfuck the dogma around it, because for I'm so happy that you speak to this piece of high femininity gets to be deeply authentic. The high feminine, like the archetype of the high feminine, which I would say like your mom is channeling high feminine, you know, the high priestess, the high feminine, this empress energy also of like, yeah, beauty is essential, get over it, that's my truth, that's my medicine. That's fucking authentic for a lot of women. Like, it's authentic. When it's authentic, you know, you can feel it. You're like, you're channeling high feminine when you're going to the supermarket, you know, like I have so much respect for that. And it's so beautiful that you speak to that, because I want to unfuck the dogma as well. This is an important part of leadership, I feel, of like getting into your authentic expression is where you'll be able to relax most reliably. You'll be most magnetic, but you won't go into burnout so much if you're carrying kind of dead versions of yourself, like a cross.
Yes.
And I feel like this carrying dead versions of ourselves, or carrying inauthenticity is heavy. It's like, I feel like that happens when we have dogma, when we have these like just really subtle layers of dogma. For example, the dogma around you're only a good spiritual practitioner if you're super connected to the earth. And I just want to bring it in some more layers here, that like, yeah, like I have a teacher who's been living in cities her whole life, and she lives in the celestial realms, and she's doing deep spiritual work of helping people cultivate celestial communication to the higher centers. She's not a Pachamama girl. She's not like, you know, and it's like there are different ways of helping right now. And it's not always going to be going out and hugging a tree, but for one woman, that might be her medicine and her way that she can help. And for another woman, it might be letting herself be adorned to go to the supermarket, because that's her fucking medicine, you know?
Totally. And yeah, the concept even of like nature being out there is also just a weird separation in itself. Like in your apartment, in your body is in nature too. And that element that you're wearing on your earring is nature too. And so is the beautiful silk jacket. Like it's all nature, baby. That's just a further kind of isolating of things and ideas of what earth and this is. And I think that's also why I like in my teaching with women a lot of the time, where they're like, oh, about the earth, and like, yes, I was an activist, climate activist person, yes, and like your body's the earth. So can we start there? Like, how are you actually treating your body? How are you being penetrated? How are you not? How are you receiving? How are you resting? How are you feeding your body as an expression and embodiment of the earth?
And also there's another dogma emerging as well that I see a lot in esoteric communities around, like, if every leader right now should be an earth-centric activist. And I'm like, in a way I'm like, fuck yes. And then at the same time I'm like, but remember, because everything is connected, there is no separation. A true non-dual teacher, if we're talking about birthing spiritual leaders, a true non-dual teacher understands that as we teach people to come back into their own body, or as we teach people to have great sex with another body, or know how to connect with a tree, it's like all the same groovy soup. Like, let there be no dogma around what your topic is, around what dress it is that you choose to wear, or whether you choose to chant a mantra or not. It's all, as long as it's getting in touch with your authentic expression, it is getting in touch with God, because God is right there. Like, God is right there. It's not out there. Nature is right there. It's not out there. I just want to like unfuck the dogma around that, because I think a lot of people feel stuck in like, how do I can't be a leader because I'm not a shaman or whatever. I'm like, lead with yourself. Your expression is beautiful. Like, yes.
Yeah, and you're like, in my facilitator training, it's funny, people always come in thinking they're going to get the handbook on like how to be a facilitator, and it's like, no, we're going to go deeply into who you are and all the shame that's actually held you back from expressing that. And as you say, like the different hats and visual expressions. Like I feel a lot of women are afraid because they don't suit a sort of visual look of what's the current times, which is so superficially based. And I feel for that, because like I maybe did fit a good bodysuit coming into this life, and I understand that privilege of what it allows me to, like, people to resonate with. And it's interesting to realize, like, oh, okay, wow, there's a real fear to be seen in a place where you're not as visible.
And also to use that privilege, though, I like to speak a lot. This is why I love post-activism. I'm like, bio Kamalafe, like, please, like, and bio Kamalafe, please just like already become mayor of the world. Like this post-activism piece around, like, it's not about let us not swim in our shame of how privileged we are. Like, if you have a voice, use it. Like, you were born into this world with a privileged vessel. Great, then move it and like amplify your expression through your body. If you can move your arm, there are many emergent leaders in the world that cannot move their arms. So maybe moving your arm can support you. Like, there's so much privilege. Like,
yes.
And through that awareness of privilege as an empowerment anchor and as a reminder to step into leadership, there's a sensation of choice. We could just replace those words of privilege with agency. Now, agency and choice feels different. It doesn't have shame attached to it, you know? Like, recognize you have choice. And are you making the most of it, you know?
And oftentimes, which feels like the predominant feeling of the world right now, is like the non-agency, and so the pointing at the privilege and at the canceling of like these powerful people that are standing up, and to realize like that's a shame tactic, and like, no, I'm not going to feed into that paradigm, because I know what white guilt feels like I live in South Africa, so I know the debilitating hold it can have to not take agency, and what it actually does. Like, dating my beautiful Black brown boyfriend is that it makes them feel exceptionally uncomfortable and oppressed, actually, when you start like trying to talk about like your privilege. It's ridiculous, actually, if you go into the depths of it. It's just a tactic of separation and control, and I think people are really confused, and it's hard. You kind of have to alchemize. You really have to alchemize the shame and the guilt. I think that's why me and you do a lot of shame work, because it's real.
And this also reminds me of why I'm so turned on to do masculine integration work, whether you feel triggered, or especially when you feel triggered by these words, feminine and masculine. It's like with the post Me Too culture of really seeing, okay, so we saw what happens, and we've seen what happens when covert shame transference, which I am like, I remember waking up that morning and opening up my Twitter account and being like, boom, this is both necessary and beautiful. And I'm curious what has birthed more conscious men in the world, the Me Too movement, or the men's, like the consciousness, the men's consciousness movement, men coming together to remind each other that there is so much opportunity and privilege and choice and agency in being a man. Can we get exhilarated and enlivened by how much space we take up physically? Okay, so we can get into our bodies and do powerful shit with our bodies. Okay, we naturally have a deeper voice and a bigger resonance with our voice. Oh my God, I'm going to use it. Wow, I have all of this orgasmic testosterone running through my system. I'm turned on all the time. How can I become the world's best lover? Like, I'm curious about what has birthed more conscious men in the world. Covert shame transference, which is a fucking like the sacred uproar is and will continue to be necessary. For sure, like Medusa, and at the same time, I am curious what frequency is birthing more potent male leaders in the world, is it the frequency of Kali, or is it the frequency of Mary Magdalena? Like, just using some archetypal ideas here to give the transmission. It's like, is the mother more of an effective co-inspirer for leadership, or is the bitch more of an effective co-inspirer for leadership? And I feel like those frequencies are equally powerful and inspiring. And it's like, for me, it feels like the difference between having a croissant for breakfast and having porridge. It's like, you probably feel like really high off energy, you know, like it'll do the thing. But is it slow burning? Is the energy slow burning and slow releasing?
I mean, I had a croissant this morning and I really love them. So I think it's actually both. Because even though it may not sustain, there is like a necessary fucking like igniting and like fire burning that has to take place sometimes to shake somebody out of their shit, because like the mothering, nurturing kind approach is maybe not working. And this little boy needs a spank, and like, you know, it's sometimes necessary. Like I don't know, like it's maybe not the most liked approach, but I do think they're both necessary. And I've seen it in activism as well. Like my rage, my activation of my bitch was the like action that took place for me to change my circumstance, because I was very much like I'm heart-centered mama. Like everyone knows me as love, 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 love. Like I exude love, but I've forgiven too quickly, or I've nurtured somebody when actually like that wasn't my responsibility.
This enabling, and this is a beautiful part to come to as well, because what I've recognized in leadership, guiding people, guiding groups, I've noticed that going into the Kali frequency and going into the masculine, like the dark, going into my masculine frequency of being like, this is where we're going, you're coming with me, or you like fuck off, like this kind of energy. You know, that works. The point is it works. And so we have to use it because it's the main energetic language that actually fucking works. Like, it's like electrical cars are maybe not the thing, but I'm like, this is gasoline, I know it works. And so it like, that energy actually really works. So it's like, how can that energy be a party starter? And then when the world is tonified and sensitized enough, the mother is all that will be needed, perhaps. This is just a theory that I have. From a traumatological perspective as well, when we forgive too quickly, we actually bypass an important reality that's necessary for doing the full circle of healing. So if we rush to love and light and forgiveness and the frequency of grace and the Mary Magdalena, like good wifey, good girl energy, if we rush to there, skipping the necessary skip of rebellion, of rage, of fuck you, I didn't deserve that, eventually it's like, again, it's like the croissant energy in a way. It's like, that is kind of like the covert croissant, is like skipping to grace and avoiding rage, because eventually that graceful wifey creature, that nice girl, that forgiving love and light leader, you just have to catch her on a shitty day, and you're gonna see the repressed bitch in her that was never really given space, and she will need to meet that part of her, so that the love and light is actually an integration of the dark and the luminous, you know.
Yes, God. And you know, it's just taking me back to the first thing that we said, which is like the death. Like death is uncomfortable. That's the fire. You got to die before you can be birthed and held by mama. Like you're going to feel uncomfortable. And I'm sorry that I'm going to be the bitch who's making you really uncomfortable. Like my teacher said to me, I hope you hate me eventually. Like I fucking hated her. I was so afraid of her because she brought up so much in me where I was like clearly not stepping up. And I'm tired, actually. Like I'm not attracted to teachers that I don't feel a little bit of fear, like a little bit of like, okay, like this bitch is really not fucking around, because like I don't have time to fuck around. And I say that to people. I'm like, please. And that's what you feel as well. Like it's like, come on, like we're doing a lot. We're here. You've paid for this. You've shown up. Like this is our time. Show the fuck up. And it's necessary. Like your discomfort, your weird feelings, that is also the medicine. in that moment.
Totally.
Yeah.
So if we go Virgo rising and do some little do a little bit of a harvest, like I feel like we've scattered some seeds on the ground. I'd love to. My desire is that the people watching this, that they could leave with some ideas of tools of how they can, have more sustained pleasure in leadership, or that's a desire that I have. Like my biggest desire ever is that people can surrender while being in service. And the second thing is emergent leadership. Like if it's about this moment, if our human responsibility is to activate and self-author our leadership qualities now, what to be aware of and it's almost like mother at the center. What does the mother at the center advise for emergent leaders, really like the advice. Does this inspire anything in you to begin sharing from your perspective on this? Do you like the idea of sharing from this perspective?
Yeah, I'm feeling into that, and the big thing is asking for help and sharing, just the act of post holding, sharing, whoa, this is what I'm going through, is big. To be witnessed of what you've done and what you've just been through and alchemized and held, I find it really nurturing to me as a leader to then be able to speak to a friend or a partner or a co-facilitator and be like, because sometimes you go into the spin of did that get received? How did it go? I just need somebody to bounce off after all of this was stirred up. So it's really that asking for help and asking for the post support. And then I think I would also call the participants, as you say, to participate and to know that we're not alone in this, and it really is about your energy in the space as well, and to be a really active participant and to honor the people who are sharing their wisdom and holding their space to for us to then really co-create. And then I think what I'm feeling emerging is shared space holding. I'm doing that in retreats now, and it's funny, I'm doing a 3 facilitated workshop, a 3 facilitated retreat, and it's really feeling like a beautiful triangle, trifecta. There's something in that's quite interesting to me, the triple goddess, and how we were told that 3 was not a good thing, 3 is a party, but that couple thing is actually it's sometimes not quite movable. So just dancing with actually saying hey, Melissa, let's do something together. Let's
never host alone. That's an important imperative that Teresa Fend from Heart Politics, she brought into Sovereign, and she's brought to me, is this concept of, if you're holding space, that you're never the only person holding space, even if it seems like it's just your container, that you always have that you always have co-facilitators to go to be like, hey, how is that for you? How's the space holding showing up? And really making sure that you have peers who are helping to call you in. Never host alone. And this has been more and more important for me, even just having even just having one of the participants, nominating them. That's something I've been doing recently, nominating, really asking. And this is something that I also do in physical workshops of instead of having a team, sometimes I just go into the center and I nominate and I say, I need support from 2 people for the next hour. Who here feels activated to author their leadership right now? And it's really beautiful to ask for help as a practice of pollinating that culture of when nobody is doing anything alone. In order to make anything beautiful happen, there's always at least a little bit of contrast, friction, interaction that's needed.
Yeah, I love that.
I love what you said about asking questions, because it activates this more, feels philosophical to me. It feels, yeah, so the last 2 years has been the first time in my life where I really have a consistent team that I work with. And it's not needed. I'm not doing that much work, you know, it's not like I need a team of people, but I realized that having a team is hard work, and that's work that I feel is really deep in itself. And in our meetings that we have, we make a plea to focus on asking questions. So rather than saying something, we try to bring in the practice of asking questions, of even just something as simple as like, yeah, how does this feel to you? Just always putting questions at the end of,
yes,
you know what I mean?
I like that. Avoids like blame as well, and really allows because teamwork, as you say, it's work. Yeah.
And this asking more questions as well feels like a philosophical prayer as well, because to a certain degree, if we're moving out of the patriarch, I feel like we're going from making statements and being bold and brilliant into being receptive and curious.
Yeah, that unknown piece as well, like being okay that it's just a question without an answer. Beautiful.
I'm sure there's so much more that we could share, and I'm curious.
Always.
I'm curious. Yeah, we have to do more of this. I'm curious if you're feeling what I'm feeling, that I'm feeling the energy closing itself a little bit. I'm curious if you're feeling that too.
Yeah. I'm feeling the sun calling me. The day. And yeah, just like there was a lot, and I'm so excited for a lot of our participants who are stepping into leadership and facilitation that will receive this and know that like we're just playing here, we're bouncing off each other, and that this is it really. This is the behind the scenes of like two women who show up really powerfully and really beautifully, and we still kind of have each other on the phone going like, hey, I'm like fucking tired, and like what's happening on your side. And that's really beautiful to also show authentically.
Yeah, the last piece that I want to share is that I feel that I just want to remind everyone that behind every powerful, radiant, confident woman is a whole life worth of experiences. And I want to just, the seed that I want to plant, that I would love to germinate with, is we can only understand how much work and how much devotion is necessary to actually be a leader when we step into our own leadership. It's deep work. And I want to share an intention here that we need more compassion for our leaders. We need more compassion for people being in the masculine role right now, because it's a heavy responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. And what we perceive as privilege may also be really hard fucking work. So I want to lift the veil here between the separation of, if people are watching this thinking, oh, these are two really powerful, privileged women that just do this all the time and don't have any fear. I'm fucking terrified what's going to happen when people watch this. I'm terrified of like I'm terrified. And the fear is less interesting to me than the possibility of helping one person who feels really lonely right now in their leadership. Because leadership
Mm.
right now, as it stands, no matter how emergent your approach is, until something huge shifts in the consciousness of humans,
Mm.
leadership, and it's very likely that it feels quite lonely to be carrying a transmission right now.
Yeah, yeah, big.
Mm.
Extending to all our leaders. So thank you for that. I really feel that.
Mm.
Thank you.
Mm. You.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.